My name is Theodore, but most of my life folks have called me Theo. I am 68 years old. I spent the better part of my life in a woodshop building this house and raising a family within it. My greatest joy now is Saturday afternoons with my 7-year-old granddaughter Lily. We draw, we build crafts. She is the late light of my life. But one Saturday afternoon, 2 months ago, everything changed for good. I came home and heard a heart-tearing sound, the voice of my son David yelling at Lily. Before I tell you what I witnessed and the life-altering decision it led to, I want to know where in the world you are listening from. Let me know your city down in the comments below. And if you have ever found yourself torn between the love for your child and doing the right thing, please hit that subscribe button. This journey was not an easy one. The quiet of my house is a comfortable kind. It is filled with the memories of my wife, Margaret. She was the heart of this place. When cancer took her 5 years ago, the silence that remained was a heavy, cold thing. It was Lily who brought the warmth back. She is my son David's daughter, from his first marriage. Her mother passed when Lily was just a baby, a tragedy that left a soft sadness in the child's eyes that never fully went away. David, lost in his own grief, threw himself into his work. So it was Margaret and I who became Lily's anchors. After Margaret was gone, that duty fell squarely on my shoulders, and I welcomed it like a blessing. Every Saturday, like clockwork, David would drop Lily off. She would come bounding in her small backpack, filled with crayons and construction paper. We had a ritual. We would sit at the old oak kitchen table, the one I made decades ago, and she would show me her drawings from the week. They were often pictures of her mother drawn from photographs, or of our dog, Rusty, who passed last year. Then we would make something. A birdhouse, a picture frame, a simple jewelry box. My gnarled old carpenter's hands would guide her small, careful ones. She called our projects Beautiful Things with Grandpa Theo. She even made a little notebook with that title filled with sketches of our finished work. In those hours, the house was not silent. It was filled with the sound of her questions, her laughter, the scratch of pencil on wood. Things with David started to shift after he met Vanessa. He married her 3 years ago. She came with 2 children of her own, Ethan and Chloe. I wanted to be happy for him. I did. He seemed eager for a fresh start, a new, complete family. But I watched as he slowly, almost desperately tried to mold himself into the father of that new family. He took Ethan to baseball games, bought Chloe the latest gadgets, planned elaborate vacations for the 4 of them. Lily, my gentle artistic. Lily began to exist on the periphery of his new life. She did not like loud crowds or competitive sorts. She preferred quiet corners and stories. I saw her become quieter on Sunday evenings when David picked her up, as if she was steeling herself to return to a home where she no longer quite fit. The first real crack appeared last fall. David had promised Lily weeks in advance a trip to see an animated movie about a painter. She talked about it for days. That Saturday, he called to cancel. His voice on the phone was distracted. Something came up, Dad. Vanessa planned a surprise shopping trip for Chloe's birthday weekend. We have to go. Tell Lily I'll make it up to her. He did not even ask to speak to her. I had to deliver the news. Her little face, so full of anticipation just moments before, crumpled. She did not cry. She just nodded her eyes on the floor and whispered, "It is okay, Grandpa." But it was not okay. That night, as we worked on a simple wooden puzzle instead, she looked up at me and asked, "Does Daddy love Ethan and Chloe more because they are newer?" The question sat in the room between us. A heavy, wrong thing. I told her no, of course, not that her daddy loved her very much. But the words felt hollow even to me. A seed of worry, small and hard, planted itself in my gut. The Saturday it all came apart started like any other. Lily arrived a bit subdued. We spent the morning in the wood shop, sanding down a small treasure chest for her seashell collection. Around 1 o'clock, I realized I was out of the special food for the backyard birds. Lily loved to watch them with me. "I will just run to the hardware store, sweetheart," I told her. "Be back in 20 minutes. You want to stay here and draw?" She nodded, already pulling out her notebook. I gave her shoulder a squeeze and left the image of her sitting peacefully at the table, warming me against the chill of the day. I was gone maybe 35 minutes. As I pulled into the driveway, my grocery bag in hand, I expected to hear the quiet of the house, or perhaps the faint sound of the radio I left on for her. Instead, as I stepped onto the porch, a sound sliced through the door. A man's voice raised in raw, unfiltered anger. It was David. My body went cold before my mind fully processed it. I fumbled with my key, my heart hammering against my ribs. The scene in the kitchen stopped me dead in the doorway. David was standing over Lily, his face a mask of red fury. She was backed against the kitchen counter, trembling tears streaming down her pale cheeks. In her small hands was an overturned plastic cup, a puddle of purple liquid spreading on the linoleum floor near her feet. "You clumsy little girl!" David was shouting, his finger jabbing the air near her face. "Do you have any idea how much that jacket cost, Chloe? Just got it. Look at it. Just look at it." On the living room sofa, just visible from the kitchen entry, sat Ethan and Chloe. Ethan, 15, had a smirk plastered on his face. Chloe, 13, was examining her nails with an exaggerated boredom, but the corner of her mouth was twitched up in a smile. They were enjoying the show. Vanessa was at the sink, her back to the room, meticulously washing a single plate. The rhythmic squeak of the sponge against ceramic was the only other sound besides David's yelling and Lily's quiet, hitched sobs. "It was an accident," Lily whimpered, her voice barely a whisper. "Ethan, he bumped my arm." "Don't you lie to me!" David roared, his voice so loud it made me flinch. "Take responsibility for once. You are always so careless." That was it. I moved. "David!" My voice came out lower and harder than I intended, cutting through the tension like a saw blade. He spun around, his eyes wide with surprise, then a flicker of irritation. "Dad, stay out of this. She needs to learn." "Learn what?" I asked, stepping into the room, placing myself slightly between him and Lily. To be screamed at, to be terrorized in her own grandfather's house. I looked past him to Vanessa, who had finally stopped washing the plate, but had not turned around. "Vanessa," she sighed a long, suffering sound, and finally turned, drying her hands on a towel. "Theodore, please. David is handling it. It is just a little discipline. Chloe's brand new jacket is ruined." Her tone was placid dismissive, as if discussing a minor spill, not the psychological wreckage of a 7-year-old child. "Discipline." I echoed the word, tasting like ash. I looked at my son. "This is not discipline. This is a tantrum. Your tantrum." His face hardened. "You do not get it, Dad. You always coddle her. This is the real world. She cannot go through life being this sensitive and messy." I did not argue with him. There was no point. The man before me was a stranger. I turned my back on him, a deliberate and final gesture, and knelt in front of Lily. Her whole body was shaking. "Come here, my little bird," I whispered, opening my arms. She fell into them, burying her wet face in my shoulder, her small hands clutching my flannel shirt. I picked her up, her lightness a profound weight in my arms, and carried her out of that toxic kitchen, past her smirking step-siblings, past her furious father, and past her indifferent stepmother. I took her upstairs to the spare room that was unofficially hers. I sat on the edge of the bed, rocking her gently until her sobs subsided into shaky breaths. I got a warm washcloth and wiped her face. "Tell me what happened, Lily." "The truth." And she did in broken whispers. "Ethan did it, Grandpa. He reached for the juice box behind me and pushed my elbow. He did it on purpose. He whispered, 'Oops,' and laughed. When I told Daddy, he did not believe me. He never believes me." She looked up at me, her eyes pools of a pain no child should know. "He loves them more, doesn't he? Because they are not messy. Because their mom is here. I try to be good. I try to be quiet. But it is never enough. Am I not good enough?" Hearing those words from her lips, seeing the profound wound her own father had carved into her soul, ignited a cold, clear fire in the very center of my being. The seed of worry in my gut exploded into a forest of icy resolve. This would end. Tonight. I stayed with Lily until she fell into an exhausted sleep. Downstairs, the house was empty. David and his family had left without a word, the only evidence of their visit being the sticky purple stain on my kitchen floor. I cleaned it up methodically, the mundane task a stark contrast to the storm raging inside me. I could not sleep. The image of David's contorted face, the smugness of those other children, the terrifying stillness of Lily's despair, it all played on a loop behind my eyes. Around 2 a.m, I gave up. I put on my robe and went down to my sanctuary, the wood shop. The smell of sawdust and linseed oil usually calmed me. Tonight, it just felt like the setting for a vigil. I did not turn on the main lights, just the small lamp over my old drafting desk. Its circle of light fell on a gallery of framed photographs I kept there. Margaret smiling on our wedding day. David as a gap-toothed boy, holding a wooden boat I made him. David again, older, holding a newborn Lily with a look of terrified wonder on his face. And Lily just last year, grinning next to the first birdhouse she ever built herself. I traced the edge of that last frame. I had made a silent promise to Margaret on her last good day. "Take care of our family, Theo," she had said, her hand weak in mine. "Keep them safe. Keep them kind." I had failed. David was neither safe nor kind. And my silence, my desire to keep the peace, my hope that he would come around, had made me complicit. I had been so focused on preserving my relationship with my son that I had neglected my sacred duty to protect my granddaughter. My mind, sharpened by grief and anger, began to work with a cold, unsettling clarity. Talking was over. David had stopped listening years ago. He was living in a fantasy playing house with a new family and treating his own flesh and blood as an inconvenient guest. What did David value? What would make him finally see? The answers were ugly, but undeniable. He valued appearance, the appearance of a perfect blended family. He valued comfort, the financial comfort I provided. I thought about the help I had given him. When he and Vanessa bought their big new house in that shiny development last year, the down payment had been hefty. David had come to me full of that eager salesman-like charm he had developed. "Dad, it is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. The schools are fantastic for all the kids. We just need a little bridge." A little bridge turned out to be $85,000. I had it. My pension was modest, but a lifetime of careful work and saving, plus the sale of a small commercial property years back, had left me comfortable. I told him it was a loan, but in my heart it was a gift. I had no intention of hounding my own son for repayment. He knew that. It was an unspoken understanding, a thread of trust and family obligation. And then there was the future. This house, my savings, my investments. David was my only child. He had always assumed naturally that it would all be his one day. He had made offhand comments about it over the years. "One day, I will have to take care of this old place," he would say, patting the doorframe. That assumption was the bedrock of his security, the safety net that perhaps allowed him to focus his resources and energies on winning the approval of Vanessa and her children, in that quiet, lamplit workshop, surrounded by the ghosts of my happier family. I realized I held the only leverage that mattered. I had been financing my granddaughter's misery. I had been promising my legacy to the man who was breaking her spirit. The lesson for David could not be emotional. He was deaf to that language. It had to be concrete. It had to be a consequence he could feel in the world he cared about, the world of appearances, stability, and financial surety. The path forward became terribly perfectly clear. It was not an act of vengeance. It was an act of profound correction. It was the only way to truly protect Lily, not just today, but for all her tomorrows. I would not just build her a treasure chest. I would secure her future. And I would show David in the only language he seemed to understand anymore the real cost of his choices. The next morning, after making Lily pancakes and seeing a fragile calm return to her eyes, I made 2 phone calls. The first was to my longtime friend and attorney, Martin Hayes. We had gone to high school together. He was a no-nonsense man with a keen sense of justice who had handled Margaret's estate. I did not give him emotional details over the phone. I simply said, "Martin, I need to see you today. It is urgent family business regarding my will and a financial agreement with David. I need to make some significant changes." The second call was to David. He answered on the 4th ring, his voice guarded. "Dad?" "David," I said, my tone neutral flat. "I need you, Vanessa, and the children to come for dinner this Friday night. 7 o'clock. A pause. "Is this about yesterday?" "Look, Dad. I overreacted, but Lily really does need to be more careful." "This is not a discussion," I interrupted, the steel in my voice, surprising even me. 7 o'clock, Friday. Be here." I hung up before he could respond. The power of that simple act of ending the call on my terms was a small, cold comfort. Martin's office was in the old part of town, all dark wood and leather. I laid it out for him, plainly sitting in the client chair across from his massive desk. I told him about the incident, about the pattern of neglect and emotional cruelty, about Lily's whispered confession. I spoke without raising my voice, without tears. I presented it as a fact pattern, a case to be solved. "Martin, I need 2 things, I said, folding my hands on my knees. "First, I need you to draft a new will and a revocable living trust. Every asset I have, the house, the workshop, the savings accounts, the investment portfolio, is to be placed in trust for my granddaughter, Lily Robertson. She is to be the sole beneficiary. Upon my passing, the trust will provide for her education, health, and welfare until she turns 25, at which point she will assume full control. You will be the primary trustee, with my friend Walter as successor. My son David is to be explicitly excluded. He receives nothing. Not a dollar, not a paperclip." Martin nodded slowly, making notes. "And the second thing is the $85,000 loan I gave David for his down payment," I continued. I want it formalized. Draw up a proper promissory note, market interest rate, a 10-year amortization schedule with a balloon payment at the end of 5 years. Make it legally airtight. I want him to understand it is no longer a family favor. It is a business transaction. Martin leaned back, steepling his fingers. Theo, this will blow things up. You understand that? I do, I said, meeting his gaze. The things that need blowing up are already broken. I am not doing this to hurt him. I am doing it to save her. And in a twisted way to save what is left of him. Maybe this is the only wake-up call that will work. Martin worked with swift efficiency. By Friday afternoon, a thick envelope was on my kitchen table. It contained the new will, the trust documents, and the promissory note, all ready for signature. I signed the will and trust in Martin's presence with a witness. The promissory note I left unsigned, that David would see first. I set the table for 6 with my good china, a formality that felt both absurd and necessary. This was not a family dinner. This was a proceeding. They arrived at 7 on the dot. David looked tense, Vanessa perfectly composed in a sleek dress. Ethan and Chloe slouched in already bored, heading straight for the living room couch, where they pulled out their phones. Lily, who had been helping me set out a bread basket, froze when they walked in. I put a hand on her head. Why don't you go finish that drawing in your room, sweetheart? I will call you when dinner is ready. She nodded gratefully and scampered away. Dinner was a surreal pantomime of normalcy. Vanessa dominated the conversation, talking about Ethan's latest baseball tournament and Chloe's lead in the school play. David chimed in with forced enthusiasm, bragging about a bonus he was expecting at work. I listened, nodding occasionally, eating my pot roast without tasting it. I was an observer in my own home, watching the performance of the family. David had chosen a performance from which Lily was conspicuously absent. When the plates were cleared, I did not offer dessert. I looked at David and Vanessa. Why don't we have coffee in the living room? There are some things we need to discuss. Vanessa's smile tightened. David's eyes narrowed. Dad, can't this wait? No, I said simply. I led the way. I gestured for them to sit on the sofa. I remained standing, leaning against the fireplace mantel, a position of quiet authority. Ethan and Chloe, sensing gravity in the air, put their phones down and watched with interest. I picked up the manila envelope from the side table. David, you came to me last year for financial help with your new home. I was happy to provide it. At the time, we had an informal understanding. I pulled out the promissory note and handed it to him. That understanding is now formal. This is a legally binding promissory note for the full $85,000 plus interest at the current market rate. You have 10 years to repay with a review and potential balloon payment in 5. I have already filed a lien against the property. David's face went from confusion to disbelief to blazing anger as he scanned the document. You are joking. A lien. After everything. What is this, some kind of punishment for the other day? This is not a punishment, David. I said, my voice calm and low. It is a clarification. Love is unconditional. Financial support and blind trust are not. When you forgot how to act like a father, you lost the privilege of being treated like a son who could be trusted unconditionally. This is now a business arrangement. You will pay me back with interest as agreed. Vanessa snatched the document from David's hands, her eyes scanning it rapidly. Her cool composure cracked, revealing a flash of pure, calculating panic. Theodore, this is outrageous. We are family. How can you do this to us? To your own son. I ignored her. My eyes were on David, who was sputtering, his face purple. You cannot do this. After all I have done for this family. After everything I have built. You have built a house, David, I said quietly, and in the process you are tearing a child apart. I let that hang in the air for a moment before reaching back into the envelope. I pulled out the shorter, simpler document, the summary of the new will and trust. I held it out to him. And this, I said, is the other clarification. My last will and testament has been changed, irrevocably. Every single asset I own, including this house, my savings, everything has been placed in a trust. The sole beneficiary of that trust is Lily. She will inherit everything. You, David, are explicitly excluded. You will inherit nothing, not a single thing. The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by the sharp intake of breath from Chloe. David stared at the paper as if it were written in a foreign language. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. The color drained from his face, leaving it a sickly gray. Vanessa was the first to find her voice, a shrill, venomous thing. You are a spiteful old man. You are trying to destroy our family. You are taking from your own blood to give to that little— Do not finish that sentence, I cut in, my voice dropping to a whisper that carried more threat than any shout. You are in my home. You will not speak of my granddaughter that way. I turned my gaze back to David, who was now looking at me with a mixture of horror and hatred. This is not about taking from you, David. It is about giving to her, giving her security, giving her a future that is not dependent on your whims or your neglect. You showed me what you value. You showed me with your actions, with your words, with your screaming voice in my kitchen. Now I am showing you what I value. I value her safety. I value her heart. I value keeping the promise I made to your mother. That is what I am choosing to leave behind. I placed the document on the coffee table in front of him. The lesson is not about money, son. The lesson is about worth. You demonstrated what you think Lily is worth. And now I have demonstrated what I think your word, your character, and your treatment of your daughter is worth. The balance is settled. For a long minute, no one moved. Then David made a guttural sound, snatched the papers off the table, and stood up so violently the coffee table rattled. You will regret this, he spat the words, trembling with fury. You will die alone in this house, and I will not be there. I have been alone in this house since your mother left it, I replied, my voice still steady. And I would rather be alone than be a party to what you are doing. Vanessa stood, grabbing her purse, her eyes like flint. Come on, children. We are not welcome here. Ethan and Chloe scrambled up their earlier boredom, replaced by a wide-eyed fascination with the drama. They filed out without a word, Vanessa leading the way with her spine rigid. David lingered for a second at the door, looking back at me. The hatred was still there, but beneath it, I saw something else, a flicker of utter confusion, the look of a man who had just watched the fundamental rules of his universe be rewritten. Then he turned and left, slamming the front door so hard the windows in the living room shook. The silence that descended was different from the one before. It was clean. It was resolved. My hands were shaking. I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and drank it slowly, focusing on the cool liquid in my throat, grounding myself. The fallout was swift and played out exactly as Martin and I had predicted. David called the next day, ranting, accusing me of being manipulated by a child, of losing my mind in my old age. I listened for 2 minutes, then said, "The terms are not open for discussion, David. The documents are legal and filed. Our next communication should be through your attorney or regarding the payment schedule." And I hung up. A week later, he tried a different tack guilt. "Dad, please, you are tearing this family apart. What will people think? How can you do this to me?" His voice was thick with a performance of hurt. "You did this to yourself, David," I said, my voice weary. Every time you chose to yell instead of listen. Every time you chose their laughter over her tears. You made your choice, over and over again. This is simply the consequence. That call ended in silence. Vanessa attempted a tactical approach, calling to suggest a family mediation with a counselor of her choosing. I declined politely but firmly. The matter is settled in law, Vanessa. There is nothing to mediate. Then the silence came. True, total silence. No more calls. No holiday invitations. My birthday passed without a card. It was a hollow ache, a phantom limb pain for a son who in many ways I had already lost years ago. The finality of it was its own kind of sorrow. I grieved for the little boy who loved the wooden boats, for the young man who held his newborn daughter with such awe. But I did not grieve alone, and I did not grieve in vain. With the toxic cloud of that family dynamic removed, Lily began to bloom again slowly like a flower after a long frost. I became more present, not just as a weekend grandfather, but as a steadfast guardian. I met with her teacher, a kind woman named Mrs. Albright, and explained the situation in broad strokes, asking her to be an extra set of eyes. I enrolled Lily in a weekend art class at the community center, where she made a friend, a little girl named Maya, who also liked to draw dragons and fairies. Our Saturday projects in the woodshop took on a new depth. We were not just passing time. We were building a fortress of normalcy, of self-worth. I taught her how to measure twice and cut once. I taught her that sanding something smooth takes patience, but the result is worth the effort. We talked about her mother. We talked about Margaret. We talked about things that made her sad and things that made her happy. The haunted look in her eyes began to fade, replaced more often by a quiet focus or a genuine, unforced smile. The financial leash I had put on David had an immediate effect I had not fully anticipated. According to Martin, the lien complicated a refinancing David was trying to do. The burden of a formal monthly loan payment forced a recalculation in that household. The lavish vacations stopped. The stream of expensive gadgets for Ethan and Chloe dried up. I heard through the small-town grapevine from a discreet friend that there was tension in that shiny new house, arguments about money. It was not the schadenfreude that gave me solace. It was the knowledge that the facade of their perfect, financially effortless life had cracked, revealing the strain that had always been there. A strain David had tried to mask by marginalizing Lily. My actions had not broken his family. They had simply stopped him from using my resources to paper over the cracks. It is a calm Tuesday afternoon as I finish this story. Lily is out back, scattering seed for the chickadees and juncos. I can see her through the kitchen window, talking to them softly, her breath making little clouds in the cool air. The journey from that horrible Saturday to today has been one of painful clarity. There was no miraculous reconciliation. David and I exist in a state of distant legal truce. He makes his loan payments on time through an automated bank transfer. There is no note, no communication. It is a cold, mechanical connection, the last thread holding us in each other's world. I suspect it will snap entirely once the loan is paid. That knowledge sits in my chest, a permanent, dull ache. But beside that ache is something else, a profound and unwavering certainty that I did the right thing. The lesson I learned is this: love does not always wear a soft face. Sometimes the most loving act is a boundary, so hard and clear, it seems like cruelty. It is the courage to say no more to someone you love, because saying yes enables them to hurt themselves or others. I loved David enough to stop financing his failure as a father. I loved Lily enough to secure a future where her worth is not determined by a man who failed to see it. And Lily, she is healing. Last week in the wood shop, she presented me with a new drawing. It was not in her beautiful things notebook. It was on a single large sheet of paper. In it, a giant, sturdy oak tree with kind, knotted eyes shelters a single bright sunflower under its branches. The sun is shining and birds are flying freely in the sky. At the bottom, in her careful 7-year-old handwriting, she wrote, "Family is where you are safe." That drawing is now framed on my drafting desk next to the photographs. It is the most important piece I have ever been given. I chose the side of the vulnerable. I chose the side of the promise I made. I chose the quiet, enduring love of a grandfather for his granddaughter over the noisy, conditional approval of a son who lost his way. And in the peaceful light that now fills this old house, in the sound of Lily's contented humming as she comes back inside, I have found a forgiveness not for David, but for myself, for waiting as long as I did. My story ends here, but the conversation does not. I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set a hard boundary with a family member to protect someone else? How did you find the strength? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be the reassurance someone else needs tonight. If this story resonated with you, if it sparked a thought or a memory, please hit the like button. It lets me know these difficult conversations matter. If you are new here and believe in protecting the gentle spirits among us, consider subscribing. There are more stories where this one came from, each about navigating the tough terrains of family and integrity. And if you know someone who might need to hear this message, a friend struggling with a similar situation, a parent feeling alone in a tough decision, please share this video. Sometimes the right story at the right time can be a lifeline. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a community where hard truths can be spoken. May you have the courage to defend what is tender and the wisdom to know that true strength is often found in quiet, unwavering protection. Take care of each other out there.